So apparently we are going to a very friendly environment. We will discuss things as friends in a very this intimate and friendly environment. So I'm switching to Turkish. Hoş geldiniz, merhaba. Böyle gayet samimi bir toplantı içerisinde görüşlerimizi paylaşacağız ve sohbet edeceğiz. Çok değerli ve çok tecrübeli aslında başkanlarımızla bir aradayız. Bir konuşmacımız gelecek, o herhalde diğer oturumun cazibesine katıldı. Gelecek, o da gelecek. Konumuz insanoğluna yaklaşır hizmetleri, temel hizmetleri sağlamakta yerel yönetimlerin oynayabileceği rol ile ilgili. Sağlık ve eğitim, aslında konuştuğumuz sağlık, eğitim, belki barınmayı da ekleyebiliriz. Bunlar çok fazla hem temel insan hakkı ama öbür yandan da yerel yönetimler açısından son derece tartışmalı bir konu, çünkü çok fazla ölçüde merkezi hükümetlerin kontrolünün da hem eğitimde hem sağlıkta rol oynadığı bir alan. Ama merkezi hükümetler ne kadar rol oynarsa oynasın sonunda iş geliyor, gündelik hayatı yöneten, gündelik hayatta insanlarla baş başa kalan yerel yöneticilerin omzuna ve sorumluluğu olmaya başlıyor. Siz isterseniz merkezi hükümette yetkileri toplayın ama yerel yöneticilerin bu konulara sırtını dönmesi de mümkün değil ve asıl yük onların omzunda ve asıl hesabı da aslında günlük hayatta onlar veriyorlar. Dolayısıyla nasıl çözümlerle yerinden edilmiş insanlara bu temel haklar, temel servisler verilebilir. Bunun hem teknik hem finansal kaynakları nedir? Merkezi hükümetle nasıl ilişkiler kurulabilir ve nasıl geliştirilebilir? O sivil toplum kuruluşları ve uluslararası kuruluşlarla nasıl ilişkiler kurulabilir? Bütün bunları değerlendireceğiz. İlk konuğumuz çok uzaktan geliyor ve çok enteresan bir yerden geliyor. Demin öğrendik ki 4 milyonun üzerinde nüfusu olan bir kentin belediye başkanlığını yaptı. Aslında orijinal olarak da bir girişimci, siyasetçi ve girişimci. Sözü ona bırakıyorum. Peshawar'in belediye başkanlığını yaptı. Komşumuz Aydan. Dolayısıyla Muammer, please, you may continue.
Respected speakers, honorable gentlemen, ladies, representatives of UN agencies, international agencies, it's an honor to be in this beautiful city of Gaziantep, beautiful veteran city of Gaziantep, and I'm very delightful and very honored for all this hospitality. Before I take a start on particular topic, let me give you a brief background on and history of Peshawar. Peshawar is a very historic city. Its history leads to around 3,000 years back, and it's the oldest in the region. The city has been the epicenter of the world traders and is always regarded and remembered for its hospitality to its visitors. In 1979, the USSR and Afghanistan conflict started, and a huge influx of refugees was seen in Pakistan and Iran. The major destination of all these Afghan refugees was Pakistan and especially Peshawar. Since Peshawar is the closest settled city near Afghanistan, the refugees chose to come to Peshawar for its proximity, culture, language, and hospitality. The people of Peshawar and the government of Pakistan welcomed them with open arms. Although initially they were confined to the refugees camps only, but later on they had no restriction on their movements and they can move freely and live wherever they wanted to live in the whole Pakistan. The integration of the refugees was not difficult in Peshawar because most of them spoke the same language, same religion, culture and values. This situation also created a crisis of a sudden load of 4.5 million refugees was experienced by the resources of Pakistan, and out of which more than 2 million chose to come to Peshawar, population than the refugee it hosted. This load of resources created many issues in Peshawar that were slowly and gradually handled by the people and the government collectively. After seeing Pakistan's commitment to hosting the refugees, UNHCR and other donor agencies also stepped in and helped our government deal with this situation. After the civil war in Afghanistan in 1992, the number of refugees escalated to around 6.5 million. But now there are around 1.5 million of Afghan refugees all over Pakistan, out of which 305,000 are hosted by the city of Peshawar. Peshawar feels proud for hosting the refugees for the longest time ever. That makes it 40 years and still they are in Peshawar. As of today, Peshawar hosts 305,000 refugees. I can proudly say that we in Peshawar do not discriminate between the refugees and our citizens when it comes to healthcare and education. They receive the same services in the same hospitals and education in the same institutes that any normal citizen or the country is entitled to. This city felt the pain of people on both sides of the border. We tried to be as accommodative as possible, and the biggest proof of that is that we still give the same services to the refugees that we give to our citizens. They are free to move and choose the place where they want to live and take their normal routine life like the other citizens. The long-standing demand of opening bank account was also accepted by the current government, through which they can receive remittances from outside the countries, outside Pakistan, and deposit their savings too. These refugees are also contributing positively to the economy, as they are the major runner of gemstone business. That refugees has this speciality that they were very known this business, and as you have heard of the Afghan carpet, they also contribute to our economy. For these 4 decades, this liberty also had a price, and it comes at the cost of no revenue from businesses, as these refugees were not paying any taxes. It also had a price of public disorder and multiple law and order situations. Law and order and bringing refugees businessmen to the tax net is one area where we still need to work, and I would like to hear about the experiences of other cities and UNHCR on this matter. In conclusion, all I can say is that hosting refugee is one thing and dealing with refugee crisis is absolutely different. The amount of energy and resources that are spent on refugee handling is far more than what is required to rehabilitation and end the crisis by handling the root cause of refugee. Stability and peace is what is required in Afghanistan to end the situation and to build a better, dignified life for Afghan brothers and sisters in their home. The world should unite to escalate the peace process in Afghanistan and help it rebuild itself from aftermath of 4 decades of invasion and civil war. I would rather feel good to be invited to a cultural exchange program co-hosted by Pakistan, Afghanistan, Turkey, and any other country than sitting in a situation where one country is host to another country's refugee. Thank you.
Thank you. Ben konuşma sırasını belirlerken
when I was determining the line of speakers, by the way, there were many good experiences about Peshawar. I will later on ask the questions. There are many interesting experiences in Peshawar. There was the repatriation agreement between Afghanistan and Pakistan. We will see if it worked, and if it didn't, why it didn't work. This is an interesting topic. It might be important for the future of Turkey as well. I thought we could go from the closest to the furthest. I will assume that our mayor Muammer would sit here, but we see that Nicosia is closer, so we changed the line and we will continue with the mayor of Nicosia. First of all, I would like to thank everyone coming from the UN organizations, the speakers and the audience for this invitation. This is a really fruitful atmosphere here in Gaziantep. This is a really city of hospitality. The connections between Nicosia and Gaziantep are quite strong. They are sister cities. I want to start with some background information. Nicosia is understood differently because it has two municipalities. Many people do not know the root cause of it. Since 1571, Cyprus was Ottoman, and at the end of 19th century, the island was rented to the British. Till the end of the 20th century, it stays as a British colony. With the approval of the UK government, there is a spare municipality of the Turkish speakers. It's an official declaration by the governor. Later on, the Republic of Northern Cyprus was founded in 1960. Correction, it was the Republic of Cyprus. The Turks in Cyprus had 5 municipalities to form institutions. The legal status of the Northern Cyprus includes legal institutions such as Nicosia Turkish Municipality. So we are internationally recognized. I wanted to say this as background information. It will not be a PR-based speech. I will just talk about the issues that we face. We don't have clear statistics as the Republic of Northern Cyprus or Nicosia Turkish Municipality, but we have temporary migrant population almost close to the local population number. Since between 1950 and 1970, there were many wars and causes to lead to migration in Cyprus. These groups should access the basic services and rights. We can categorize this status and rights in 4 categories. The first one is labor and working permit. In the Northern Cyprus, there are people who lived there for a long time, the second generation. They might be citizens or non-citizens. What are their status? They have working permits or residence permit, and they are sons of workers. Are they Turkish? 27% of them are Republic of the Turkish citizens of the Turkish Republic. The rest is coming from the third world, apart from Turkey. When we look at education, 68% of them are mixed or from the Northern Cyprus. The rest are coming from either Turkey or the third world. This group, including Turkish citizens mainly, they can access the education services and rights, but there wasn't any public policy to integrate them to the society. There was no policy of social cohesion. This led to ghettoization and the separation and stigmatization. This is among the problems that we face. As a Nicosia Turkish municipality, the integration of this group to the population was an aim for us. We determined some geographical regions, and in terms of social activity and sports, we tried a policy of cohesion. The second category is informal workers and their families. Mostly they are coming from the third world, mainly from Pakistan, Bangladesh, Turkmenistan, Vietnam and India, etc. They might be tourists or students with some fake reasons. They might be fooled, they might be deceived when they come to the country. These might be people working informally forever, or they might start as working with working permits or lose them. With the data coming from the Ministry of Labor, 20% of the population is working informally. The biggest threat is in this group. These people are open to exploitation both in workplace and in community. They're also subject to deportation sometimes. They don't have any access to basic service or rights. Also, it is quite difficult to have reliable data at this topic. Maybe the worst is that they might also be subject to human trafficking. This is also not unknown. The legal legislation and also the local governments are not sufficient. With our authorities in different subjects, we took some steps in order to fight human trafficking. The most important one is that in nightclubs we have sex slavery. It's an important part of human trafficking. We used our authority, and inside our area of authority we shut down the nightclubs. We wanted this to be an example because there is a serious humanitarian trauma here. According to our constitution, you cannot do this as a profession. Since it cannot be practiced as a profession, people come with different reasons to the country. The nightclub owners take their passports and they become subject to human trafficking. As Nicosia, Turkish municipality, we declared that we will not let such operations to be performed in our territory. Another point might be about the informal labor's sheltering and accommodation. We identified some areas where accommodation was not sufficient. We took some steps there with our construction department. We also took steps against the areas where humanitarian working conditions are not met with. Accordingly, the EU also funds some projects on interagency coordination, which means the cooperation between NGO and the local governments. We are also part of this project called COMIT. Nicosia Turkish municipality in the past had a project about sheltering women. We have one woman shelter house, but the state does not own one. We only have. We are the only local authority to ensure the local cooperation about women's sheltering. Another category is foreign students. In Cyprus, according to the 2019 data, we have 103,000 students. Only 20% of them are citizens of the Northern Cyprus Republic. 53% of the rest is Turkish, and the remaining part is coming from the third world countries. The parallel with the current population of the country shows us 25% of the country are foreign students. The latest statistics are, the most recent statistics is from 2011, but the Ministry of Internal Affairs in Turkey said that 374,000 is the actual population of the Northern Cyprus, but no one actually knows the actual population of the Republic of Northern Cyprus. This is a controversial topic. One of the most important problems faced here is also about students. The northern part hosts 50% of the student population. cheap labor and cheap accommodation, also low living costs are promoted when they are coming to the country, but then they see an opposite situation. This leads people working informally in different areas, and the people who enter the country with student visa at the end up as a part of the informal employment. Of course, we have poor conditions of accommodation or healthcare in examples that we see. There are families with only one parent, etc. We face many issues here with the students' representatives, such as host Cyprus. We are in cooperation. Also, we act as a bridge between the state and the student representative institutions. I hope the Ministry of National Education also takes part in these efforts. The latest category is about the refugees. The Republic of North Cyprus is not recognized internationally. Also, the Republic of Cyprus does not have strong connections with the Turkish Republic. The Syrian refugee crisis was felt strongly in the territory, and since 2009 the Republic of Cyprus accepted the refugees, but then they stopped to accept it in 2013-19. This increased the unregistered influxes of migrants with boats, etc. We have a refugee population of 120,000 in Cyprus, and it is a ridiculous number compared to Gaziantep, I know. But with women's shelter house and other facilities that we provide, we are trying to host them and welcome them. In conclusion, the local authorities share an important role, as you said in the beginning. We should be local powers, local governments, more than local authorities. We should empower the local governments in terms of legislation and the provisions of international organizations. Sorry for expanding out my time. Thank you.
Sorry about the lineup because I still thought Şişli was closer, but turns out Nicosia was closer. And our mayor from Şişli has been actually working for a long time, and there is a colleague next to him, Mr. Muammer. The floor is yours. Thank you very much. I would like to start by welcoming everyone, both our participants from Gaziantep and all of our participants that are coming from very faraway countries, and thank you very much for being here. When we look at the local administrations, they are the core of democracy for us, and they are the institutions and the parts of the government that is really in touch with the people. Looking at the Şişli example, Istanbul, as you know, was the capital for three big empires, and Şişli, within the scope of Istanbul, is a culturally mixed and very rich district, and we are neighboring Kağıthane, which is another big district in Istanbul. And we have a lot of our citizens. The population of Şişli is already high, but there are also a lot of tourists and refugees. There are different people from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, with different genders and different religions. And this mixture makes Şişli both advantageous and disadvantageous district. Looking at the figures we got from the DCMM, are we talking about your perspective as well, or just the numbers? No, I will just talk about the number. the population would be around 274,000, but there are also a lot of people that increase the number of people actually living there. At night, the population really gets steeper and steeper because it's a very lively district. And we have around a lot of people from Africa, from Afghanistan, from Iraq, a lot of migrants and our neighbors. Normally, I would say the population of Şişli in the daytime would be around 3 million, and the number of refugees around 274,000. Looking at it from the perspective of local authorities, we are the part of the solution, the biggest part of the solution. In 2015, we established a migration unit under the social support unit that we have. And one of the strongest parts and strongest steps that we take is that we are actually paying attention to increasing and enhancing our communication. So we have a lot of protocols. One of them is with the Refugee Support Association. And with these kinds of protocols, we are trying to serve the people who are refugees or under temporary protection. They are coming to our centers and they are then referred to related institutions, and they are supported in terms of psychosocial needs, in terms of their hospital needs, and a lot of other social areas as well. And in terms of their problems that they face regarding legal issues, we are also providing them with consulting services around national and international law. And also there are some groups within refugees that are more sensitive. We are also working with related institutions. We have a coordination unit for disabled refugees. We have social support and help units, especially in Ok Meydanı, Mahmut Şevket Paşa Community Center is serving these people in areas such as Ok Meydanı, which is really densely populated by refugees. We have a protection desk also, and with this project we have 2 Azerbaijani and 140 Syrians, and we are serving a total of 400 refugees, and 45 Syrian women were included in women's health program that we have. One of the biggest applications that we get is by the refugees is for psychological support. And also they are applying to us for getting courses, and also one of the most difficult areas that they face, the issues that they face, is to get their temporary protection status. And also in terms of accommodation, because of the rents, especially in our city and our area, they are having a lot of problem. And we have an anonymous test center under our Ministry of Health, and in this test center, the refugees can get services anonymously, and it is about, for example, sexually transmitted infections and any kind of support that they might need in terms of their health services. And also gynecology services are provided for free for refugees. And policy makers and the things that are actually affecting our policies around refugees are included in our centers and in our municipality. Our equality center is especially working very hard on preventing discrimination against refugees, working in cooperation with NGOs. Our advantage, our chance compared to other districts is that we are located in a part of Istanbul where the connection and the communication with NGOs are really strong, and even to facilitate easier use of health services and basic hygiene projects. We created a project under Şişli Municipality. We served 800 Syrian refugees and also Turkish LGBTQ community people. We served them in our units, and we have our courses in our ateliers, in our workshops. Also, we have our city council, Şişli City Council. Our mayors would know. They are established, yes, but they are not really operating functionally as well as we would hope. The Refugee Council have been working in our districts for the last 3 years, and as you are all very well aware of the fact that we are getting together with our citizens and the refugees alike so that we can get to their problems, the root of their problems, and it is our responsibility to come up with solutions that serve them well. We have a lot of associations and foundations such as Aslan Support Association, independent city planners and translators and activists that are working in the city, and their support is fundamental to our work. The Refugee Council, there are 20 refugees for approximately 7 to 10 hours. With the help of NGOs, they are being served in our centers. And equality unit in health services, they are providing about health speeches and prevention of discrimination. There are booklets that are translated into Farsi and Arabic. And this is actually very important in terms of providing the means for refugee people to communicate better. And starting with December, 340 young refugees will be taking courses, language courses, and some other courses too in our workshops and in our units, and we will help them in getting into some opportunities such as internship opportunities or employment opportunities. And lastly, one of the things that we did is that we are attaching importance to working with international and national NGOs and institutions. We hope that we will all together share the responsibility and make the local administrations the core of the strategies that we use in order to combat these issues. Thank you very much to Mr. Muammer Keskin. And Mehmet Tahmazoğlu is actually from here. He is one of the hosts here. He has been the mayor for the last 3 terms, and Şahinbey is the district of Gaziantep with the most refugees. And the mayor is responsible for approximately 300,000 people here. The floor is yours. Esteemed panelists, speakers, dear participants, I salute you all with respect and I welcome you here to our city, Gaziantep. It is very meaningful for us to have you here in our city.
İnsan hakkının en önemlisi bana göre yaşamak.
I think the right to live is the most important basic human right. And people getting separated from their families and getting separated from their mothers and fathers and their children and their roots, their education, this is a crime against humanity. And we have to look at it from this perspective. It is, I think, very important. You shortly touched upon Şahinbey district, but I would like to give you some figures from last year. We have around 900,000 citizens and over 300,000 Syrian population here. And we were the first city to get this influx of refugees because we are right at the border, and because of the war, because of the interests of some countries and some people in the area, I think they are committing a crime against humanity, like I said in the beginning. And we have to combat. We had to combat with this issue. We took immediate action. We worked with the Red Crescent immediately. We shipped 150 tons of flour to the area before even getting the first wave of refugees, and we sent bread to the area because we didn't want them to starve. That was the basic thing, the most basic thing we could do at the moment. And Gaziantep and Şahinbey in particular, because over 300,000 refugees came in to Şahinbey, and this was the first wave of refugees. And we have, of course, camps that are established by our government in around Biricik region, but the people who were living in the city centers, all the burden and all the responsibility around these people fell upon our shoulder. And Gaziantep citizens, they did something amazing. They provided accommodation for these people because they rented out their apartments for very affordable prices. They shared their meals, they shared their bread. You cannot see this in anywhere else around the world. Even looking at the camps in Turkey, I'm not a big supporter of the campsites because based on their wishes, of course, I would think that it is more appropriate for them to live in the city with our citizens. But it was really important that we saw Gaziantep locals. They opened their houses, they shared everything they had with the refugees. Although it looks very simple from the outside, we are collecting every day 300 tons of trash, and this is an addition because of the refugee influx. And we are handling a financial burden of 200 million Turkish liras just because of this process. And we couldn't get any support, any fund from international or national institutions. This is a very heavy burden. We are, although not doing, and we have never done any kind of discrimination against refugees in terms of whether it is access to health services or schools. They are actually subjected to the same rules and same laws and same level of quality in terms of services as our citizens.
belediye olarak da baktığımız
And when we look at it from the perspective of our municipality, what did we do?
değil. Mesela Şahinbey Belediyesi olarak Suriye'nin
Just as Şahinbey
8.000 metrekare
municipality, we created a garden for the Elbab
çadır kenti
city
ki şu anda kapandı daha önce Suriye'de
of Syria. And we have provided some sports equipment and toys and clothing for the children especially. And in our district, we have 610 parks
en büyük misafirleri yine Suriye'de.
in our city. And Syrian people, Syrian refugees, they are enjoying these parks a lot. It makes me really happy to see them enjoying these parks.
Maliyetlerimizi tabii parkın bakımında
And of course, the maintenance and cleaning and the services that are provided to keep the parks in the good condition that they are is also another burden on the municipality in terms of the financial aspect.
buralarda biz yine eğitimler sunuyoruz.
We are providing courses, we are providing workshops for our Syrian brothers and sisters. We have vocational courses, we have folklore courses, art courses, sport courses, and cultural courses.
Yine tabii Gaziantep'e geldikten
And after coming to Gaziantep, of course, we wanted to support refugees in terms of teaching them Turkish. In our facilities alone, we taught 11,800 Syrian refugees Turkish. We have over 1,000 Turkish courses,
belediye olarak kırtasiye
and we supported
var günlük 8.500
the refugees in terms of stationery and their school needs, over 1,500 Syrian refugees, and also 15,200 families
beyaz eşya
were provided with furniture, clothing items, and also appliances
Peşawar tekel
for their houses. And we also supported refugees for some of the medical needs that they might have for the disabled refugees, especially providing them with battery charged wheelchairs. And we also provided support for people who wanted to open up their own businesses. They are again subjected to the same rules as our citizens are, and we are also opening up our units, our offices for NGOs and for other institutions that are helping us with refugees. There are some shelters, of course, or some facilities of NGOs, and we are providing them with support in terms of whether it is clothing items or food. We have students from among the Syrian refugees, of course. At the elementary school level, we have over 24,000 students.
öğrenci
And in high school, we have 3,312 students refugee students in our district. And we have serious support for the education and school.
spora teşvik. Bundan Suriyeli öğrenci
And we are actually supporting both for our citizens and refugees with sports items, for example, some sneakers or balls or toys that they can use in their schools. We also provided them with some watches, and for healthy snacks we provided them with some lunch boxes and also coloring sets
nasıl yaratıyor?
or coats or other stationery items. Again, we are trying to promote, of course, the successful students, and we are
Kendi vatanında, kendi toprağında
supporting them with everything that we can provide in terms of their school needs. And I asked a 12-year-old Syrian child how Turkey was, and she said Turkey is beautiful, but the homeland is different. So I saw in her eyes that she was missing her homeland, and this is very true, because no matter where you are, you have a longing for your own country, for your own homeland. And we have to do everything in our power to have them return to their countries in a good way, in a good condition. We have spent, as the government, we have spent over $40 billion, and I hope that the financial support will be increased in terms of the municipalities too. Thank you very much.
It is more than 300,000, and we can say that it is more than districts themselves in Turkey. It's a great population of refugees, and when you first confront that, dealing with it would be really problematic, I can imagine. The majority and the enormity of the process that we are facing are not comprehended easily. We are in a really interesting experience in terms of humanitarian crisis. We have Meryem, Aslan, who worked all around the world. Do you have any other part of the world that you want to work? You say Mars? Okay, we can't do anything for that. She is the director of Oxfam Turkey. She has been working with the UN institutions, operating some programs and projects with them. Probably she will share observations on this very convention and her experience in this area. Thanks a lot. I would like to thank everyone that contributed in the realization of such convention, also the audience as well. I want to say something before I start. You know, Monday it was the International Day of Struggle Against Violence Towards Women. I wish everyone days without violence. I would like to thank every municipality in Turkey for their sensitivity in terms of refugees and also the struggle of Turkish women against violence. You stood sides by sides with them. Thank you for that. Okay, for 2 days I have been following the mayors of our municipalities. I also heard other people, but what I was interested in was both the domestic and foreign municipality mayors. Our topic is ensuring quality services with dignity, both in Turkey and abroad. What I heard was also discussed by Oxfam for the ministries, the NGOs, and the municipalities. We gathered the actors here and discussed about the practices. We also gathered the refugee organizations and heard about their evaluations. Therefore, I can say that my evaluation will include my outcomes from those meetings and what I heard here. At some points, what refugees say and the people who are working in institutions say and the ministries say are related in general. We should first start with the refugees. In this forum, we all talk about the humanitarian dignity. We all talk about putting aside politics and approaching the topic in a more humanitarian way. The refugees, for example, say that for a dignified approach, they apart from their legal status, they should be considered human. They should access to the services as human. This is not a problem, but a part of the solution. The solutions of the problems require their participation, their inclusion. That's what they always say. Hearing this from the mayors and seeing that they put effort for participatory service distribution, it is quite positive for me. The city councils, the women issues, the disabled people, or other topics should include such approach. It is not perfect, but it is necessary. I want to interrupt because it is quite crucial for our forum. We always hope this, and in 60 speakers, let's say, how many are there who are Syrian? Maybe this might be a question. Yes, we have one, Khalid, a Syrian speaker. Yes. The dignified service or access to services have some key points. This was our question to the refugees. What we deduct from what we heard and our previous work, the political leadership of the institutions are crucial, both for local authorities and central governments. This kind of leadership acts as an important role, and in Turkey it is quite evident. In central governments, when we don't have this function of leadership, the local authorities should take over and act as leaders. This was a takeaway from our discussion. Another point was when we heard the municipalities. It was flexibility, the flexibility of the budgets of the institutions. If they can flexible in terms of functioning and budget, it is considered an important factor. It also affects the public opinion. It was deducted that the local authorities should act like bridges between the local communities and refugees. You all say people opened up their doors, but at the same time I think that municipalities directed people to do so. What I heard from you is that hate speech and prejudices were removed thanks to this bridge role of the municipalities between the host and refugee communities. Also, another reason for this was the inclusion of the refugees. These were all your points and arguments. Another important point is the distribution of public services to the refugees. Education, healthcare, accommodation services would be open to the refugee communities. The municipalities should act like complementary institutions in distributing these services from the central government. For example, let's say for education, you established some language courses or vocational courses or science and maths courses, and that's how you complement the service distributed from the central government. This is very important for dignified access to quality services. I think it's an important factor that you act as bridges. People who work with you and who are not mayors or civil servants say this. How can we distribute the services better was another question. Some points were put forward. The potential changes in legislations, having them a little bit more flexible, and extension of the functions of the local authorities. Yes, we are flexible, but it should change, was the message that I heard from you. Another message was that the central government should convey more budget to the local governments according to the number of the refugee population that they have. this was another message. The budget should be determined according to the number of refugees. Another message was on the coordination of the central government and the local authorities. The provincial and district municipalities also should have more cooperation and come up with a common database. These were also among the messages. These were among the steps that could be taken for the amelioration of these services. Of course, along with that, we can also think about more egalitarian approach in terms of distributing the services between the host and the refugee community. It is also applicable for the international level. How can we distribute this responsibility in a more equalitarian way with the international organizations? The problem is not just domestic. It is not only the coordination between the municipalities and the central government, but also the international distribution of responsibility, the sharing of the workload. These were also among the messages that you have given. When I think about the services that you provide, I can are aware of these global sustainable development goals. It is all for women empowerment and education and the other services. I see that you are providing your services according to those global sustainable development goals. If you were to give the services in a more holistic and extended way, for example, we can say that in violence against women, child care and education, if we are to be more active, there should be a participatory and common strategy of municipalities and the local government. Is this a correct message that I deduct from what you say? Is it correct? Okay, what I want to say is this so far. I think you can be the spokesperson of the local authorities from this day. I hope I did a good summary about the local authorities. Thank you, it was really good. I have several questions, but maybe we can take yours first. We are all together here, so you can speak out freely. If you have any questions to our mayors and their spokesperson in a way, you can just ask your questions, or else I will continue. We should use the microphone. First of all, thanks for all your effort. Mrs. Meryem, a really good summary. What I wonder is that how do the municipality workers empower themselves? They always confront traumatic and people coming from crisis. As the municipality mayor or a municipality civil servant, how can I empower myself? Do you do any psychological work on that? You can go first. We can start with the municipality of Şahinbey and then Şişli. Of course, it's a good question. We had spoken with the mayor. We are trying to provide services with many people, with really few. I asked him and he said 3,000 people are employed in the municipality, but we have more than 1,200. That's why I asked this. I really want to thank my employees for their sacrifice. As the department heads, the mayors, we always motivate them. We have inner institution trainings. Our slogan is quality, positive service delivery. We always have trainings, motivational speakers in the municipality. Of course, everyone is working for their salary, but when you work for public, it is also working for the God. We all say that it is also a holy duty to provide service to the people. Maybe I can add one more sentence. We always see the reflection of this. We came to power in 52%. The second period it was 55, and right now we have 63% of votes in the recent election. In the most recent election. Do you have a limit of 3 periods? Yes, we have, so it's my last period in duty in office. Of course, we are living in a difficult geography, not for only our employees, but both for the beneficiaries and service providers. It is quite problematic. As the mayor said, we have more than 3,000 employees. But it is also because we are in the city center. We have a really serious increase on the night in terms of population. It might be considered too many as employees, but sometimes it is not sufficient. We always come together, and as the mayor said, we also have inner institution trainings in terms of healthcare and social services. Our units are conducting important work. The number of these units and departments are quite high, and they act really functionally. It is not only the refugees, but the disadvantaged groups in general. We have many LGBTI members resident in our region. We try to raise awareness, including them in the trainings, and that's how we motivate our employees. As the mayors, we are living on rent, if you will. We are temporary, so we should convey the service in the best way that we can. If you cannot do this, of course you will not get the feedback. This is only ensured with the employees. As one person, the mayor can never be enough. If we cannot manage this service providing process, the next period will be about a failure story, and you will be considered against the society. Our strategy is human-based, human dignity-based. We don't have any others in our municipality. We also came to power with a vote of 55%, but we don't have any concept of the others, regardless of religion, race or gender. We are all equal to everyone. Of course, we have many lacking points. We should never forget that these are all about resources. If you can conduct a service well, you need resource. Both our Istanbul Metropolitan Municipality Mayor, Mr. Ekrem İmamoğlu, and the other mayors in districts, we are in cooperation. With the contribution of our charity people, we had many new steps and projects to empower the lives of our residents. We all consider them as neighbors in terms of, I'm talking about the refugees. I'm coming from Anatolia as well, and we forgot the concept of neighborhood, being neighbors in Istanbul, both psychologically and sociologically and
Burayı Mehmet Tahmazoğlu Başkanım da söyledi, bu geri dönüş meselesi. Peshawar Afgan hükümetiyle Pakistan hükümeti arasında Birleşmiş Mülteciler Asım konserveliğinin kolaylaştırıcılığında bir geri dönüş protokolü imzalanıyor ve sanırım çok eski bir tarihi var o geri dönüşün. Yani iki hükümet anlaşıyor oradaki mülteciler mültecilerin geri dönüşü konusunda. Fakat uygulama nasıl oluyor onu çok merak ediyorum. O geri dönüş süreci yönetilebildi mi, gerçekleşti mi, yoksa geri dönüş gerçekleşemedi mi, merak ettiğim bir şey. Asim Kan, ne dersin?
I talked about
I thank you for putting LGBTI citizens in the agenda, and you also mentioned the differences among the Syrian population. Thank you for that. My question is that despite all that is done, still the Turks are living in a parallel. They cannot live together in a way. We all provide services in order to prevent discrimination. These were all done by municipalities, but they are parallel, they do not cross. What can we do at this point? Does the municipality do anything? I will rephrase the question and extend it a little bit. According to the recent research, the social, let's put aside the politics, but 55% of people are putting the conflicts between the Syrians and the Turks as the most prioritized one. In the districts of the municipalities where Syrians live commonly, we see that there are few operations done for Syrians, but we know that there is more done by the municipalities. You are politicians, so you should be paying attention to the attitude of the voters, of the people who elect you. So it's a critical mission to manage this public opinion. What can we say about these conflicts and stigmatization? We can continue building on this question. I want to start with saying that this is not an easy topic. As Mr. Vural said, the audience in this hall does not include many refugees. We all talk in these halls and then go out and we think like we have a magic stick and solve all problems. We should talk about differences. There is no problem with that. In my district, the previous mayor in office, and Mr. Vural had some contribution to that mayor, we had come up with a symposium which was called Middle East and World Refugees. People all around the world came there, but there were people who could not express their opinions because of the crucial attitude towards them in their countries. There were people who spoke out the official discourse in Turkey because they were afraid. Of course, let's put aside politics, but politics are involved in this issue. Of course, local authorities are responsible for the central government. It can be any district. Is there any point where we don't have any Syrians? From east to west, north to south, we all have Syrians in our districts. Before this war came out, this war started, I had traveled in Syria for 2 weeks. And I was there for 12 days. I am glad that I had done this visit and solved the situation before. As local authorities, we cannot call anyone as the others, regardless of our political parties. We should comprehend the sociological status in our district. I underline it again. The LGBTI citizens are important. And there are Syrian ones. We have refugees, the Turkish, or people coming with different ethnicities. If we focus on one single point, the other points would be overlooked. This means that we are providing service to a certain group. The LGBTI had a meeting. I'm sorry to say that we were seriously insulted after that. as a local authority, as a mayor, sometimes you don't have the opportunity to access all disadvantaged groups. May it be refugees, people with different ethnicities, we should all be equal towards them. The facilities and the resources of municipalities should not be distributed to people that we consider close. It should be comprehensive and it should be inclusive for all problems. There are many problems in our districts. Of course, it is impossible to solve all of them. It is about the budget. In the most rational way, we should manage our budget and use it for all the disadvantaged groups, both with the employees and our citizens living in our district, which is 3-4 million during the day. We should include all of them. Otherwise, we will not reach to a solution. Istanbul Metropolitan Municipality also has serious investment and contribution. They share the human-oriented approach. The new period will include these concepts and notions. If the problem in Syria is not solved in a peaceful way, these problems will continue to exist and increase. Despite the fact that we are all modest here, if we cannot eradicate that hate speech discourse, there will be another group apart from Syrians tomorrow that will face discrimination. Thanks a lot for your contribution. Managing this social cohesion is our topic. Gaziantep is a really welcoming city, as you said. Şahinbey and Gaziantep were really inclusive, but at the same time managing this social cohesion is a critical duty for you. In Nicosia there is a really total different picture, so let's start with you.
We are both advantages and disadvantages. Our disadvantage is that Turkey is hosting a huge number of refugees, and no one could be prepared for this because providing accommodation, health services, education, this is not an easy job, because if the increase in the population is gradual, yes, you can handle some of these things, but if it's so sudden and in such a crisis setting, it is of course very difficult. But Gaziantep in the Ottoman era, it was under the rule of Halep, so when you look at the picture culturally, there is not much of a difference. When you look at the culture, you look at the way people dress or the cuisine, the food. If it was, years ago, if this situation was happening years ago, we wouldn't even call people refugees. There are so many people that are on the other sides of the border, opposite sides of the border, but they are relatives. For example, a lot of people, refugees, came from Syria to Gaziantep, and they had their relatives here, and they started living with them. So we can say that this is an advantage for us because we are closest to the border, and we are culturally very close with the Syrians. But of course, this discourse used in politics, unfortunately, is used in a way that, serving people's own interests, parties' own interests. Of course, there are some negative approaches. A lot of Turkish citizens, for example, say that because of the Syrian refugees, we cannot find jobs, or, there are a lot of misconceptions about the Red Crescent's financial support to refugees, and a lot of the citizens of Turkey, they are saying that you are discriminating against your own citizens by providing help and financial support to Syrian refugees. These are two of the most heard and encountered misunderstandings or misconceptions regarding refugees. And there are some funds coming from the European Union and UN, and they are allocated through the Red Crescents, for example, and we are not providing a direct support, financial support, or we are not directly paying people money out of nowhere. So no one actually chose where to be born or which gender they would like to be born with. You know, this is not a source, this should not be a source of discrimination. This should not be a source of hate. Of course, me being Turkish means that yes, I might be proud of who I am, I might be proud of my country, I love my country, but it doesn't mean that I would have to hate any other nation, because no one chooses where they are born. Yesterday, yes, it was a very important day because it was the day against violence against women, and this is not the only way, this is not the only thing that we pay attention to. It is one of the most important things, but also other kinds of violence towards any other living being is wrong, and we are not advocating any hate speech at all. Okay, so let's talk about the Nicosia issue. There is a different social setting there. I think this is a very deep question. I don't know if we can look at the basis of the class differences. There are a lot of different parallel lives in the world. There are differences between classes, rich people, richer people, people in labor. There are thousands of parallel lives, you know. There are some people that perceive the differences between these parallel lives as parasites leaking through the borders of classes. You know why? Because people are being pushed into a competition between themselves. The richer people, the rich people, they are not really affected by any of this. They are not using any kind of public transportation. Only the laboring people, the people who are actually in the working class, they are thinking that they are affected by everything. And the discourse is actually affecting these kinds of people. So it is the politicians actually use this discourse on masses. So they are trying to gain benefit from these people, these classes of people, to benefit the rich. And looking at Nicosia, we can see that it is a place where people live in unity, and we are brothers and sisters, and we are now hosting the third or fourth generation of refugees in our country. And the problems, the differences are actually minimized at this moment, because it is a better place now. But 15 years ago, there was discrimination, there was racism, and it was used politically, unfortunately. But now, looking at our district, it is eradicated, it seems. But of course, new problems arise every day, and we are trying to come up with solutions. Thank you very much. I have 3 notes: social coherence, capacity, and social coherence and eradicating the discrimination against refugees. I think we covered it, the mayors. I think what it means that we need political courage as well. Because with a little bit of political courage, we have to understand the discourse. Yeah, Yes, what you say is actually what I mean by political courage. You have to use political courage to stand against any kind of discrimination. And this hate speech and discrimination is not an issue that could be solved just by one mayor or one city. It should be a collaboration between the academia and the international organizations, the NGOs, local administration, central government, and we have a lot of recommendations that we collected throughout this conference. In terms of capacity as well, we heard from the municipalities that they are providing services, but it has to be standardized at some point. It should be a standard services and sustainable services. And for doing this, finance, of course, is very important, but the intent is more important. When these two things come together, I think we will pave the way to standardized for disadvantaged groups and women especially. And about repatriation, we heard about this a lot throughout these 2 days. Peshawar example, I know about it because I lived in Afghanistan for 5 years. I've been to Afghanistan a lot of times since then. But we have to keep in mind that repatriation has to be voluntary and it has to be taking into consideration the human safety and security. If you cannot actually provide the means for the security and safety, the repatriation becomes impossible. And what we saw between Afghanistan and Pakistan was the circular migration, because people were going into Afghanistan and Pakistan and out. And now between Syria and Turkey we are experiencing the same thing, but maybe we can see a potential circular migration between Turkey and Syria. How can we use this in our advantage, I think, is a very good approach to this possibility of circular migration. Yes, a lot of the research that we do, the repatriation or return tendency is getting lower and lower because people are actually establishing their lives here. But let's go back to the next question and then we will talk about
the Kızılay Kart cash transfer program and the fact that it is entirely funded by...
Bir saniye beklersen. Just a minute, please. Just okay. Yeah, please go ahead. No.
Yes.
It's okay.
That the Kızılay Kart cash transfer program is funded entirely by the European Union, and going back to what you were mentioning, I think collectively perhaps we could have done a better job of communicating to both the refugees and the host communities who is doing what in terms of the response, and this goes a long way, I think, to contributing to mitigating social tensions. But this program, the Kızılay Kart program, is one that we could not have put in place. Sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Raza. I work for the European Commission's Humanitarian Aid Department, based in Ankara. But this program we could not have put in place without our governmental partner, who is the Ministry of Family. But this is an example of a microphone that...
No, it's fine.
Of a program that is going through the central authorities, but here we're talking about the services and perhaps the strain on infrastructure that the local authorities are experiencing. And my question is to mayors, maybe to hear about if you have good examples of how you have managed
just
to attract the resources, mobilize the resources from the central government. We have heard a lot of complaints from the mayors in these past 2 days about the fact that the budget transfer is calculated based on the number of citizens as opposed to the number of residents, and this idea of the hemşehri, which we have in Turkey. So you are providing the totality of the residents, including the migrants and refugees, and yet your budget that you receive is only calculated based on the census of the... So I wonder whether this legislative gridlock, if had any sort of innovative solutions, whether in Turkey or in
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Just a brief about the question. I'm sorry. Burada merkezi hükümetle
insan sayısına
Repeating the question, the funds are taken based on the number of citizens, but should we do anything, or are we doing anything in order to change this into making it based on the number of both refugees and citizens? Well, you talked about in your question about the Kızılay card, Red Crescent card. It is allocating the money, the fund coming from the European Union and United Nations. I think this funding is, of course, very little because the burden of the financial burden on Turkey is very big. It is around $40 billion, and we also spent over 500 million on this, and we cannot get any fund or anything, any international or national resources or funds when we are doing this spending. So the burden is completely on our shoulders. And from time to time we are talking to the government and the central government and the ministers, and depending on the number of refugees or Syrians or refugees in the area, they also think that it is wise to allocate this fund to the cities based on the number of refugees and the refugee population density in a district. It would be wise. The central government also thinks the same thing, but it is there is a lack of resources, and it is that's why we cannot actually do it effectively. But European Union definitely should handle some of the financial burden because they are saying that they don't want any refugees there. We are talking about 3 plus 3.5 billion euros, and the first 3 billion is paid, and then it is still awaited, the second part. In 2009, I became the mayor, and 92 million was the budget of the municipality, and the debt was 200 million. So all of the municipalities in Turkey are in this situation. I think there is no municipality in this country that doesn't have any debt, at least double the amount of their budget. And then 300,000 Syrians, the refugees came in, and of course this doesn't help with the debt that the municipality already had. But we have this mentality that if you have a guest over at your house, the abundance in your house is increased with the guests, with the number of guests that you have in your house. This is our belief system. This is our mentality. So we actually closed our debt. Since 2010, we increased our budget by tenfold, and we don't have any debt without any help, by the way. I think this is because of our mentality that we welcome people with their abundance that they bring. Thank you very much. Okay, the last words after this question. Hello, thank you very much for your beautiful experiences. My question is a little bit complex. The microphone doesn't work, so the translation might fail. Everyone is talking about development. Development is what is one of the biggest needs in a society, but inclusiveness is the most important part of going along with the developments. We should not leave anyone out. We cannot leave anyone behind. there is a huge problem of child labor, for example. What are we doing in terms of this issue?
En önemli iki engelden bir tane pek çok engelin en önemli iki tanesiydi. Çünkü çocuk işçiliği
Because this child labor, as long as it continues, they are not actually going along with their education, so they are held back, and it is actually keeping the development in terms of bringing them into the economy, bringing them into the education system, and training them to become maybe owner of their own businesses or work in the economy, within the economy. I think the experience sharing here is very good and it is very beneficial, and I think that we don't have to, come together at conferences every time, but I think it would be even better if the mayors and the municipalities came together, even at a friendly setting, just two mayors or a couple of mayors talking together. Do you do anything like this on such issues? I would love to hear what you do in terms of close municipalities and how your communication is. This is a very actually comprehensive question, yes, but let's get a short response for this, please. Yes, I've been working as the mayor of Şişli, but I've also lived in Şişli for many years, and we have been collaborating with, for example, my neighboring municipalities. They are actually AKP municipalities. We are constantly coming together to communicate better and to collaborate on issues that are both of our issues, all of our issues. So the second point that you mentioned, child labor, and the societies who cannot educate their children, they cannot go anywhere. And for example, preschool is very important for us. Any $1 investment that you make for a child between the ages of 1 to 3, it will come back to you as maybe 100 times more. So we are working on it. We are trying to provide kindergarten and preschool services. We have a lot of refugee children, but of course we don't have a lot of opportunities and resources. I have a lot of that. I mean, as I say, I mean the municipality, my municipality. I hope that I would be as lucky as Mr. Tahmazoğlu, so we can close our debt. The microphone doesn't work, so translation cannot be done.
Evet, tabii döneme başlamamız hasebiyle yaptığımız örnek çalışmalar çok ilgili gerek Gaziantep'in gerek Türkiye'de
Duymuyorum.
gerek Türkiye'de yaptığımız çalışmalarla ilgili faydalanması belediye başkanlarının ki
There are some mayors, for example, regardless of what political parties they are from, they actually communicate with us very well, and we share everything that we do with pride, because this is not just our work. This is, I think, the best practices are important. We have to share our experiences so that other people and other districts can develop as well. Child labor, you asked. In terms of child marriages, for example, it is almost completely eradicated in our district. Is this registered? I mean, do you keep the figures? Yes, they are coming from the official numbers of TÜİK. The age average for marriages are increasing every day, but the divorce rates are increasing at the same time. there are some marriages that are not actually legal. They are illegal, but they are actually registered as marriage. Well, yes, I mean, this is just the average age. Of course, we are against child marriages and early age marriages. And we are trying to develop policies because of that. We have a marriage school for the last 10 years. There are universities, the police forces, and the municipality, and a lot of parties, and we are actually providing support for people who are getting married, and we are also providing them with some furnitures and white appliances. I just want to say a couple of sentences to finish the close the session. We talked about a lot other countries too. In Geneva, for example, we talked about, how there was a increase in some of the European countries by 100% and even more. But they were talking about numbers that were less than 1,000. But here, 300,000 people, refugees, came into only one district. This is not just a problem of Turkey. This is a problem of the world. This is a global problem. And I think in terms of budget, my personal experience is that the budget, the existing budget, and its allocation to the bottom, to the actual channels that are reaching the people in need. This is one of the most important issues because NGOs and international organizations and ourselves, we have to be aware of that, because if the budget's, the 10% of the budget actually reaches the districts, then we cannot do anything about that. So we have to work on raising our awareness in that sense as well. There is a lot to talk, but this is all the time we have. Thank you very much.
Mali müşavirleri olmasına yani.
Zaten
Müzesine geleceğini.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Ortalama, yani aşağıda olan da var, yukarıda var anlamına geliyor. Ama bence
biz resmi evlilik dışındaki evliliklere de karşı olduğumuzu o zaman belirtelim. Özellikle ve bununla ilgili de bakın yine Türkiye'ye örnek bir proje yapıyoruz. Nedir? 2009 yılında, yani 10 yıl önce başlattığımız, 10 yılını doldurduğumuz bir evlilik okulumuz var. Belediyemizin yürüttüğü. Bunların içerisinde üniversite, Milli Eğitim Müdürlüğü, Sağlık Müdürlüğü, Emniyet Müdürlüğü, Diyanet ve belediyemiz ortaklaşa her ay evlenecek çiftlere eğitimler veriyoruz. 3 haftalık ve 4. hafta sertifikasını veriyoruz. Ayrıca evlenen çiftlerimize düğün hediyesi otomatik çamaşır makinesi hediye ediyoruz. Böyle de bir teşvik.
O zaman ama erken evliliği teşvik ediyorsunuz o zaman. Bir an önce
erken evlilik değil, resmi evlilik.
Gönderelim size.
Arkadaşlar başkanım,
şöyle bir toparlayalım. Tabii bütçe, yani ben çok kısaca toparlayayım bir iki cümleyle. Bir tanesi böyle bir hikayeyle ilgili. Ben 2-3 sene önce Cenevre'deydim. Bana bir sunuş yaptılar. Yani rakamı hatırlamıyorum ama ilgilendikleri mülteci sayısındaki korkunç artışı ve bu konuda nasıl sorumluluk aldıklarını anlattılar. Sayıyı tam doğru söylemeyeceğim ama galiba %150 artış var dediler. 45'ten 110'a mı ne çıkmış? Şimdi oradaki rakamla bizim konuştuğumuz 3,5 milyon sadece Gaziantep'te bir ilçedeki 300 bin, gerçekten Türkiye muazzam bir iş yapıyor. Düşünün ki 600 bin Suriyeli çocuk şu anda ilk öğretimde, yani ilk öğretim ve lisede. Bunları okul, öğretmen, bina, alet, bulmak, yani bu 40 milyar dolar falan hakikaten bir şey değil. Yani bu muazzam bir şey. Dolayısıyla gerçekten de ve mültecilik hep Birleşmiş Milletler'in de çok sevdiğim bir sloganıdır. Herhangi bir ülkenin kendi başına bir sorunu değil. Yani Türkiye'nin sorunu değil, bu dünyanın sorunu. Yani neresinde yaşıyorsanız yaşıyorsunuz, o sizin sorununuz ve bu nokta bir gerçekten önemli ve çok ne kadar Türkiye üzerinde dursa bence bunun haklı. Ama bütçe konusunda ikinci üzerinde duracağım, benim kişisel deneyimlerimden de söyleyeceğim. Var olan bütçenin de en dibe, yani gerçek faydalanıcıya akması konusu da son derece önemli bir konu. Yani o aralardaki kanallarla en son noktaya gidiş arasındaki ilişkiyi de çok daha ciddi, hem sivil toplum kuruluşlarının hem uluslararası kuruluşların hem bizlerin de çok iyi değerlendirmesi lazım. O ara kanallarda bütçenin 100 lira bütçenin %10'u sahaya gidiyor, %90'ı ara kanallarda takılıyorsa bu da önemli ve bizim üzerinde çok duracağımız hep beraber meselelerden biri. Ben tekrar çok teşekkür ediyorum. Ne yazık ki süremiz doldu. Daha çok konuşacak şey var ama hepinize sağ olun.